I would also say, so like when we first were doing this, it was CISPIS. And we started looking at some of their curriculum that they have, and it was very outdated. Like, I mean, I don't know the law that they have like updated or refreshed any of it. And so I think as a teacher, that was a big part of it too, was the lessons and the tools that they give us. So half the time it'll be kind of like us doing instruction and lessons, and then the other half will be Waskowitz staff. So I think the curriculum that's provided is far superior than what I was able to see from CISPIS. So I think that's another big component of it. And like Heidi said, it's fully staffed, and this is what these people do. It's their job. They are there they're one of the guys that was up there lived there. So they know the area. They kind of know everything there is to know about Waskowitz and that outdoor education. So I think it's going to be a great time.
Some indication of how old I am. So when I went to Apple Valley, CISPIS was a wonderful memory, and I'm really excited for the kids that they're going to get, not that they're going to CISPIS, but they're going to get this opportunity because I still remember that experience. And so I'm really excited for you guys to get to do that. Is the hope that if this goes well, and obviously there's funding and so forth, but we solve those issues. Is there a hope that when I went to CISPIS as a sixth grader, the whole sixth grade went from the entire West Valley School District? So I was intrigued by the remark, Heidi, that you had about that there was a bonding, and it was a nice thing. It was a nice thing that we got to do because then we saw those faces the next year. At that time, we met in seventh graders, but and these guys will sixth graders. So is there a hope that maybe if we can solve some of those issues?
So
Great question.
I think if like the logistics are there and the funding is there shouldn't be a reason why every elementary school or fifth grade or whatever is able to go. I do think that Waskowitz there's a capacity issue. And so with 6 elementaries, and I know we have 4 fifth grades and not all elementaries have 4, but it might need to be split up maybe into 3 and 3 or something like that. But I would hope, based on our experience and what we can bring back from it, that the rest of the district in the elementaries or fifth grades can be part of it going forward. So.
Good question.
So I'm just curious, so I'm probably the least knowledgeable since I wasn't here when these guys perhaps participated in, but what are the months of the year that this is available? You mentioned spring and summer. Is it year round, or do they get to go during the winter months when things might be different, or is it just closed at that time?
I'm not sure. I know it's during the school year because it's owned by a school district. I know. I don't know if I'd want to be out there in the middle of winter. I mean, like obviously it's April 12th and we had snow today, so it is on. It's in North Bend, and so the weather. I mean, we still could have some very wet days in May. When we went up in March, that was probably doable, but it was chilly when we weren't moving and doing things. So the facilities are great. There's air conditioning, but there's also heaters. So, like the sleep areas, the dining hall, those places would be great. I don't know if we would really want to go up in the middle of winter, but, and then you think about the past, things like that. I like the idea of fall to have that kind of, starting out the school year strong, starting out the school year together, building some of those relationships before, or, at the beginning of the school year. I think it'll be great for this group of kids to have this experience and then go on to the middle level. But I also see the value definitely in going up there maybe in the fall. So September or first part of October, maybe. But
We'll get on their list early.
yes.
One more question. So I went to a private Jesuit school, and so this was fascinating for me. Some of my biology classes, we actually got in the boat and went on the Mississippi River.
Oh, wow.
Collected plankton and all that stuff. So anything like this, what grade levels will this camp work for? Is it all grades?
Would say it's predominantly 5th and 6th grade. Because there's what? Oh, living history for 4th grade. So I think that the lessons, there's plenty to choose from. So I also think that you could kind of cater it to whatever grade you are, but I would still say, I know like for the school districts on the west side, they are a lot of it. It's like every 6th grader will go. When we were up there, there was different teachers from different schools and districts across the state. And I would say, I'm pretty positive that everybody that we met was a 5th or 6th grade teacher. So.
Two questions. First, parents who want to send their kid, can they opt out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, in the optimistic world, we said, oh, no, everyone will go. And no, we are finding that. So we've worked really hard with our parents, more just making understanding what it is. But we do have a few for a variety of reasons who are saying, not so sure about that. So we're establishing, we want to invite them to school. You're still welcome to come to school. It'll look different that week. We're going to have someone with them and take care of it, but absolutely they can. We're really going to encourage 100%, but we recognize that we have a couple taking trips. They're going to meet us up there. Someone's going to pick them up early. So we're really trying to make those accommodations as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Second question is, I'm getting older by the second. And that is, when again, I went to CISPAS, or I would send my daughter to camp in the summer, when I was at CISPAS, I remember my coach sending me a letter. Nobody sends letters anymore. So is there but I also remember it says no calling home.
Yeah.
So is there a way for the kids to have like sent to the camp or anything like that?
No electronics. Very heavy on the no electronics policy. We're wondering if that's why some kids are like a little nervous, right? That security, a little shocking.
For some of them.
No phones. You're not taking your phone. We did talk about that though, like inviting like Mr. and Mr. K, our parents who are here, the Kegleys or whomever, maybe write a letter and then we'll have it with our teachers. And I think I did that. And then we, like on Tuesday night, when they're starting to feel a little easier homes, we have some letters for them or a postcard. So that's just a fun idea. But no, it is very much a, now they will have phones. There are phones in case of emergency, of course, but they're not going on and sitting at 6 o'clock after the campfire, letting their thumbs do it. It's going to be verbal communication and great stuff. And I appreciate when we present, because Mr. Thorner always talks about his Apple Valley days. And yeah, and I want to address CISPAS. Again, CISPAS was our first objective. Due to COVID, it was just the way they are just funded differently. They're put on differently. So I'm optimistic that CISPAS will get back to that. They just in this year weren't able to really offer the program of Waskowitz. So I am still a heavy supporter of CISPAS, the learning camps, the leadership camps, etc. So we'll still keep an eye on them as well.
And what is your plan for continued education through the rest of the school year? I can see the benefits of going in September and year-long units. But we're short on time in the school year. So what's going to happen between now and June 15th?
I mean, it's a little bit crazy. Heidi was in my room today and I think we have 45 days of school left. And 4 of those now are going to be at camp. Then we are going to have state testing. There's a couple things that I've talked with the team about, kind of some like background information and kind of scaffolding some prior knowledge for them before we go up. About ecosystems and the environments or biomes, things like that I know this will be our first year doing the science portion of the SBA. So I think that all of that knowledge will go towards that. And just, a better understanding of some of the, big science concepts. But also they'll have, time for reflection. And I think it's a great way, being at the end of the year, to, think about almost like their elementary and their experience in elementary and where they're going from here, and using that though, because we're going to kind of get back and then we're going to jump right into testing, and use that knowledge that we learn and maybe fill some of the gaps that we've had over the last couple of years because of COVID, and maybe not hitting our science curriculum as hard as we normally do because we haven't been in school or different situations. So I think that this will kind of lend into some of those missing pieces, and just some of the strategies and things that we were taught when we went up for training. Really, we're not doing so much of the teaching as kind of like facilitating and really getting the kids to, like investigate things, and what do they notice? What do they wonder? How, their own conclusions. And so I really like that, because it's a complete hands-on experience, because we're outside and we're in nature, and everything's right there for us. So I think that kind of continuing that, and then into the end of the year, it'll be really valuable for them to have some of the information that they gain from this.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us come.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, kids.
Oh. They're Waskowitz. Yeah, they made a poster. One other thing I was thinking about really quick is the kids that aren't going. So I think Heidi said we have 92 fifth graders, and I would say over 90% of them are going. I think there's maybe 10 that aren't for various reasons, and we had to hear it from parents. It wasn't just a kid that didn't want to go because they don't have their PlayStation, but for valid reasons. And I've talked to a couple moms who, like, their kids haven't left them, or been away from family. And so I've taught my students for almost 3 years. So I'm like, I will send you updates. We will have updates. So I think even some that were on the fence are like, they recognize the value of this, and they're like, okay, we're in, we're going. So just a little extra.
No, that's good.
All right, and I think,
It's as a parent, it's scary.
yeah.
That's totally understandable.
All right, we have some gifts for the 3 students who helped to present. So thank you so much for helping to present. And there's some gifts right there. And then just wanted to recognize Heidi Sutton. So she is so knowledgeable of the workings at the state level. And so that's why she was able to get access to that funding. She was right on top of that. So Heidi has served as president of the elementary school principals of Washington State, and she's serves on the board for that state level organization. So Heidi does such a nice job of being in the loop on the state level work and keeping us informed here. We really rely on that as a strength of hers. So let's give Heidi specifically a hand. Thank you so much, Heidi. And thanks to Ms. McKinney as well. All right, so we have the gifts of the students, and then parents, you're free to go ahead and leave the meeting if you like. You don't have to stay for the rest of the regular meeting. There we go. And I think we're ready to move on to public comment of non-discussion agenda items. I believe there was one sign in, is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Finch. Yes, so we'll go ahead and start with the public comments on non-discussion agenda items. And again, a reminder, the board will not respond, but we will listen and take your comments and actually review them for ourselves. So with that, I'll start with alternate. So we'll start with anybody online. Is there anybody attending via Zoom that would like to have a comment? There is one. Okay. Oh, okay. Caller, could you please unmute yourself? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go.
Thank
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, thank you. We figured it out here. I don't know if this is the right discussion or the right time. We joined the meeting a little bit late. Under the impression that there was going to be some conversation regarding gender neutral bathrooms. Has that happened yet?
Not yet.
Is this the right time to discuss that?
Certainly, if you have a public comment, yes, you have 3 minutes to present your perspective.
Okay, well, it won't take 3 minutes, but my perspective is that gender neutral bathrooms for pretty much grade 12 and below, when the kids are underage, is not the right answer, especially when it's when you're doing it for the minority, basically. A majority of kids, and I'm sure out there that may or may not want to speak up, would not feel comfortable using a bathroom with the opposite sex. And I know my kids are of that thought. So, I just think that doing that in the schools to satisfy the feelings of those that may think whatever their gender identity is, isn't fair to the rest of the kids. Maybe look at building a third bathroom or doing something, a separate bathroom that is non-gender specific. I would be okay with, as long as my kids have the ability to go to their bathroom of whatever gender they are born with. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you for your comment. If there are no more, I'm going to go to the list here. Next person is Carly Blevins. If you would come up to the microphone.
Good evening. I'm Carol Blevins. Can you hear me? And I have a kindergartner and a first grade in a town and valley, which they really enjoy the school. And I first want to thank for the response that I got, or we got at the last meeting about the equity and inclusion, which
Ms. Blevins, is your microphone on, or can you pull it closer to you? I don't know if everybody can hear.
hello.
There we go. That might be
Yes.
maybe here. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh,
We just
much
want to make,
better.
I don't want to hear myself.
but everybody else does. So
So I wanted to thank you all for the response last time about the inquiries that I made and others did too about the equity and inclusion. What's that being taught? What is being taught at West Valley School District? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard, since I'm kind of focused on primary, that they are teaching to be respectful to others. That's great. And then something about gender gender identity, I would assume. I think that's the word of the day. And that was concerning me. I wanted to know, what that looks like for our little kids. I just, in fact, listened to some information on some programs that are being developed, have been developed for schools in this nation, from preschool up, and it's pretty disturbing what they're teaching in schools. And so, I'm just thinking that my girls, they're very secure in what they know. They know that there's babies are born boys or girls. They have extended family. They've changed diapers, whatever. So they know what the physical differences are, enough of the physical differences right now. They're happy with that. They go to school. They love to play with the boys. They love to have the boys in their class. They have the boys and the girls to their birthday parties. They're going to play Little League with boys. So they don't have a problem with boys. But they are very adamant that they do not want boys in their bathroom. That is where you go, as my first grader said, to have some privacy. So that would very much disrupt them. And to go back to what was said earlier about the bathrooms, I didn't quite get it. Is there going to be boys in the girls' bathroom and girls in the boys' bathroom? So, I know that we all are all here because we care about our kids and their well-being. So I just think we need, I'd love to see a demonstration, even with the kids by video or in person, of what this looks like, what they are teaching the kids, what a teaching session looks like for this gender identity. So that's my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and we'll go to the next person on the list. Brooke, is it Brooke Jolly or Sally? Sally?
Good evening. My name is Brooke Jolly. Our family's been part of the West Valley School District for 12 years. We have an 11th grader, an 8th grader, and a 4th grader. I've been attending these board meetings more often lately as I've been concerned in the lack of transparency from the board and communication. My first concern is in regards to bathroom use. It is my understanding that currently any student may use any bathroom they identify with. The West Valley School District mission statement states, we will provide a safe, high-quality learning environment in which each student experiences success every day. If my daughter needs to use the restroom and a biological male who identifies as a female who is likely to be larger in stature to her is in the girls' bathroom, how does that make her feel safe or feeling like she is in a safe environment? Can you find a solution that helps transgender students feel safe using a restroom that does not take away the feeling of safety for children who are not choosing a gender different than their biology? Does this policy also happen in locker rooms? Will my daughter be forced to dress down in PE next to a biological male who identifies as a female? Second, my concern is with the lack of communication on lessons that are shared with our students. It is my understanding that a YouTube video called Range of Gender Identities was shown during Ram Strong classes in the month of January under the Equity and Inclusion Lessons of Martin Luther King material. Why this was not communicated beforehand to the parents, just like a sex ed class where parents are able to view the material that was going to be taught to their child before the child viewed it. This gives parents an opportunity to discuss ahead of time with their children, or if they so choose, to opt out completely from the material being taught. Why is this the same consideration not being given video that goes into gender identity, birth sex, and sexual orientation lessons. Lessons on respect and kindness are great. Lessons on gender identity, sexual orientation, etc., being sneakily entered into the classroom, not great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'll do one last check to see if there's anybody who has a comment via Zoom. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 8, action items, approval of minutes. I guess we can do minutes for item number 1 and 2, both for March 22nd, the study session and regular board. Would entertain a motion from someone to approve those. Is that you? Thank you, Mr. Meyer. We have a motion to approve the minutes of March 22nd, 2022, study session and regular meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have approval of travel requests. There are 2 items. Do we want to break them apart or can we take them together?
I think we can take them together. Move to approve the travel requests 1 and 2 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Thorner. We have a motion to approve travel requests. Stacy Drake and Nordstrom Balderson.
Track team.
Track team, thank you. All together. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next, we have addition of policy revision, second reading. Policy 4200, parent access and safe and orderly learning environment. Any discussion or anything anybody wants to add or make a motion?
I'll move to approve the second reading of policy 4200 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Thorner. We have a motion to approve the policy addition revision, second reading, policy 4200. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, next would be approval of resolutions.
Now we
So
struck those.
we struck those, okay. That's the one that gets carried over,
Well, we're gonna bring it up at a different meeting, yeah.
okay. Then we'll move on to item number 9, discussion items. So gender inclusive schools policy development. Jason MacKay with Clay.
All right, as I previously had shared, our work in doing our response to public comment and being responsive, as we want to be, it became, we were notified that, this issue that we were researching, that the district does need to adopt policy and procedure as per RCW 28A 642080. Because of this issue, wanting to have an opportunity for the board to have some question and answer with our legal counsel, I thought it'd be good for us to have the legal counsel here in person and to have our audience as well to hear from the legal counsel and how basically from our legal counsel, what is it that we're going to need to, are we required to have the policy and the procedures as we move forward with this requirement to have the adoption of policy procedure. We don't have a current draft at this time for the board. This is more of a policy development discussion and an opportunity for us to hear from legal counsel about what will be required in this policy and procedures. So Jason, go ahead and share some information and then we'll have a chance for some question and answer with the board.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Finch, and thank you, school board, for having me here tonight. It's great to see your faces and to see you in person. I know I had an opportunity to meet with many of you in virtual meetings last year, and it's wonderful, I have to say, for my part, to be able to be here in person to see you. So thanks for having me down. So as Dr. Finch teed up well, and maybe before we get into the policy, as many of you know, just kind of a backdrop of the current law of the land and why we're even having this conversation. Ultimately, as of right now, but whether a policy or procedure are adopted or not. Currently, the law of the land that it is unlawful for a school district in Washington state to discriminate against or otherwise deny access to a student based on their gender identity or gender expression, which is what the law says. So what we're here talking about is not really about whether or not the school district is going to adopt the law. It's just whether or not it's going to adopt a policy. Ultimately, why we're having this discussion is because the legislature has adopted a law, as Dr. Finch stated, that is the correct RCW 28A 642080. And it's in the same section of RCWs that essentially addresses this issue of discrimination based on gender identity. Also near some of the other sections talking about harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So same kind of area. In fact, this statute was adopted about the same time as the harassment, intimidation, and bullying statute was adopted. And so ultimately what this statute says is it says that school districts in Washington state by law are required by law to adopt policies and procedures which incorporate what the law says is it incorporates the elements of a model policy and procedure, which was adopted by WVSD, the School Directors Association. So they adopted a model policy and procedure. And ultimately, as they do, for those that don't know, WVSD adopts model policies and procedures all the time, and school districts essentially take those from WVSD and then they incorporate them into your own and tailor them to yourself. So this particular policy and procedure addresses a couple things. The policy, the model policy is pretty short. And again, Dr. Finch and I are going to work on developing something that incorporates the essential elements of what are in the model policy and procedure, but is also what he and I would think are maybe specifically tailored to this district, and that'll be presented to the board at the time. The policy is pretty short and it's got a couple of elements. Essentially, that the school district understands, it acknowledges that it has to promote an inclusive school environment, which includes, again, not discriminating against students based on gender identity and expression. The second thing that it incorporates is to have a requirement per the law that each school district has to have a point person, a liaison, a person that heads this up. And that's the point, that person has to get trained, and that's the person that essentially monitors and ensures that everything is being done pursuant to policy and procedure. And then, of course, as is typical and common, the procedure is much longer, it's much more thorough, and it incorporates many things. And again, the procedure that'll be put in front of the board, again, Dr. Finch and I will work to make sure that it incorporates the essential elements of that model procedure. But it's going to address things such as a process for district officials to with when any issues arise, for any issues, again, some of the issues we've heard tonight regarding bathroom use and regarding locker room use and regarding pronouns and regarding names. It addresses issues with regarding records, name changes, what records need to maintain the birth name versus what records can be changed to adopt the chosen name, and essentially processes for how all of these things need to work. It'll obviously has a complaint process in it as well. If a student or family is alleging that the policy hasn't been followed or the procedure hasn't been followed, it will list a complaint policy or a complaint procedure, which will look very similar to the HIB complaint procedure. And then ultimately, it has some training issues too. Again, the law does not require that all staff are trained on an annual basis. But Dr. Finch and I will work up, I think, some good best practices language on ensuring that folks are properly trained. Because obviously, from my perspective as legal counsel, I think it's always really important that your policies and procedures are adequately portraying and communicating to all of your staff, obviously to all of your stakeholders, but particularly to your staff so they can understand how to address issues as they arise to make sure that they're not making any missteps. So that's what we'll be working on to get in front of the board for a first read at a future meeting. If the board has any general questions, again, as I always have to preface in these open meetings, is if you are seeking any legal advice, my suggestion would be not to do it here. But if you have any just general questions, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer them or attempt to answer them.
what kind of timeline are we looking at to develop this? It's becoming a hot topic.
Well,
And
luckily,
it's best that we attack this now rather than put this on the back burner. And I think we need to work hard at getting something down so that we can move forward.
well, I'll let maybe Dr. Finch address some of that in terms of timing, but I can tell you that he and I have already been working on that, and I don't anticipate that it's going to take very long at all. I think we understand that timing is of the essence, and it's the school board's desire to try to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. So we're working, again, working quickly, but also making sure that we're developing something that's sound, that it's lawful, and that it works for the school district. But Dr. Finch, if there's anything you wanted to add on that.
Right, we were notified that we needed to have that policy in place, and so I had contacted our legal counsel, and there is the model policy, so we began reviewing that. But rather than just to take it right to the board, I wanted to have a chance to have some question and answer with counsel and to do this policy development. But my plan would be at our next board meeting, we would have first reading of the policy and be able to have some continued discussion on that, and then continue with second reading at the following meeting.
Two questions. One, and maybe this might go to the legal advice question. So if you don't answer it, I understand. What if we don't adopt a policy? I'm looking at the statute right here. I don't see the hook for the consequence to the school district if we don't adopt the policy. Second question, while you're thinking about whether you want to answer that question or not, is there any litigation that you're aware of this is a state statute. Are you aware of any litigation in state court or in federal court dealing with this particular statute and its validity and constitutionality?
Sure. No, I'm not aware of any litigation that's pending over it, but I'm happy to review that. And I will review that just for my own edification. In terms of the first part of your question, I think I can answer it vaguely, which is the hook is in RCW 28A 642050, which gives OSPI the authority to take various actions against school districts for non-compliance with the provisions of the chapter. And that's where I think it hooks in 080. So that's where the legislature put the hook, because that was one of my first questions as well, Mr. Thorner. And that's what it is for those who don't have a habit of just reading RCWs, I can just summarize that ultimately OSPI has the legislature. And again, I don't know to what extent this authority has been challenged, but all I can say is what the legislature has stated and what's in the statute. And that's that OSPI has the authority to withhold apportionment, to shut down programs that aren't compliant, or to put the school district on probation.
And I believe
so the question is, and I think I reiterated this at the beginning. There is a law that says you have to do this. The most important thing from a legal perspective is that regardless of the existence of a policy or procedure, that there's no actual discrimination occurring. That's certainly where the real legal problems are going to arise. In terms of whether or not the school board should or should not do it, I would not answer that question.
Yeah, I would just want to be clear. I'm not suggesting that we don't follow the law.
Yeah, I mean, my easy legal advice that I can always give is just to follow the law.
Yeah. Yes, I'm not suggesting that we don't follow the law. My question is, I think that, and this is where I'm going to make just some comments about, is that I think that the challenge that a school board has is that we have goalposts. Those goalposts are set. Many of those goalposts are set by the legislature. Whether we want to follow those rules and that's the best thing for we view that as the best thing for us, but we have to follow the law. So the problem is when I read this law and thinking about policies and how I look at policies, is we want to follow the law, but I don't want to set the school district up to fail, whatever that looks like. And it's when I read this statute, I'm, and when we get to the policy, it's going to be with that in mind is how do we not set the school district, how do we follow the law and not set the school district up to fail? And, that's not a question. That's more of my commentary about the matter, but this is a really, one of the reasons why I asked the question before about the litigation and the interpretation and what a school district has done or not done is instructive to what we should do to follow the law. So I think it's one of many things that are imposed upon local school districts are these situations or these statutes that I just feel like set the school district up to fail. And that's just my personal opinion. And that's too bad because whether you're the transgender student or the parent of a transgender student, or you're not the parent of, or you're the parent of a non-transgender, I don't even know how to say that, a non-transgender student. I don't know. I'll just say, like many things that the legislature does, they are setting school districts up to fail. That's just my personal opinion.
Jason, I have a question for you as well. You said a moment ago that the law says we have to promote inclusive environment. So what does that mean legally? I mean, that's a pretty broad statement, in my opinion. So what do we have to do? What's the minimum and what's the maximum, I suppose, if there is such a thing in this kind of issue? What do you see as that meaning to us legally as a school board?
Well, yeah, obviously, and many policies, particularly the model policies that we see language like that is very vague, and it doesn't provide a lot of guidance. Ultimately, that's where I think the procedure comes in, is to try to explain or go into a lot of those areas that at least guidance has been released on specific issues like use of restrooms, like use of locker rooms, like use of pronouns, like names on school records. Those are the type of things that are addressed in the model procedure. And at this point would be what I would say we would have some guidance on, is what the courts would do if there was some lawsuits down the road, or what the EEOC might do. Or I guess in this case, it'd be the State Human Rights Commission.
Right. I also wanted to share a response to Mr. Thorner's question. We have annually a financial audit, but then on a periodic basis, OSBI does a consolidated program review. And in those past, we've been required to show our non-discrimination policy and such. So I could see in the future in the consolidated program review that we would need to show this policy for gender inclusive schools.
And I have a follow-up question to my earlier one. So is there any of this legislation that is going to have subsequent action by the state to require additional steps that we can foresee? And I'm in part, I'm thinking of, if we're required to do certain things, we don't want to take half measures now. We need to figure out what the larger picture is going to look like for us.
Sure. Well, at this point, all I know is the state hasn't adopted anything different than what the statute has said and what the model policies and procedures that have been developed and what OSPI has stated. So at this point, I don't know that I know or can foresee whether or not there's going to be anything additional that's going to come down the pike. Obviously, that happens all the time. And oftentimes it happens where, kind of to Mr. Thorner's prior point, as you see litigation or things that come up, or as this gets challenged, as discrimination or retaliation claims are brought, oftentimes you get a little bit more information and interpretation from the courts, and which then causes, of course, everybody to have to adjust potentially based on what was said. At this point, we have what is in the statute and what's in the model policies and procedures and the guidance from OSPI. That's all we have at this point. But again, the thing is, whenever you have new laws, there will be challenges, there will be litigation, things may change, they may not, but there's always development. There's always case law, and things tend to develop and change. And that's, and I guess that's why people like me exist, to make sure that you keep up with those changes and staying in compliance. But it's still relatively new.
Mr. McKay, I know, and I have full confidence in you, and that you're going to develop, you and Dr. Finch and whoever, a policy that meets the law. But, my granddad used to tell me all the time that just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. And that's the part we're going to hear as a school board, is from the constituents we have that don't agree with what's been passed down to us. And regardless of whether we're upholding the law or not, it doesn't serve the district well in times of levies and bonds and those kind of things that we need to maintain our funding so that we can offer the educational opportunities that we can do now. It's not an easy thing to face. And I understand, we appreciate your help and all that. And I'm not looking forward to some of the meetings here in the future, to be honest with you.
And I understand and appreciate that, sir. And I can, not that I've ever been in your position, so I can't completely emphasize or empathize with you, but I understand that oftentimes things are passed down, or had your fair share of mandates come down, and I'm not commenting on anything pro, con, or indifferent. But I understand that oftentimes these things put school boards in very difficult positions. So I understand that. But again, to your point, Dr. Finch and I will do the best that we can to try to ensure that the district is following the law and doing things it needs to do, but also tailoring it as best we can for the needs of this district.
Thank you. Another question for you, sir. I'm probably going to be pretty inquisitive here on some of this stuff. As far as what you could read into the legislation itself, are there any built-in financial costs to school districts that you could see? Or financial?
You mean in terms of complying with the law?
Exactly.
But
yeah.
potentially, well, one of the things that the procedure will address is the issue of developing neutral bathrooms or locker rooms, if they don't already exist, places of where students can choose to have privacy. So the district is going to have to take a look at its current facilities to determine if it has the proper facilities to comply. And that, to me, the immediate cost that I see is probably that, in districts ensuring that they've got the adequate facilities. Training of staff is obviously a cost in and of itself, at least in people's time, and getting people to speed with this. Those are kind of and it just, without really thinking about it before your question, sir, those are kind of the initial costs that I foresee.
Another question. You mentioned that one of our major responsibilities initially would be to have a point person or a point of contact. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Exactly what does that person do? I mean, do they coordinate with the state, or are they just simply someone that things get reported to for the school district. Just curious what your perception of that responsibility is.
Yeah, I think the person is intended to really be a liaison with the state. I think that person is intended to be probably the point person in providing training to district staff as needed, because that's the person that's going to be needing to get trained by law, as the law requires, pretty frequently. So to me, I see this person as kind of having multiple different hats, but probably the most important will be ensuring that district staff are properly trained on ensuring that they're following and complying with policies and procedures. But I do believe that the intent, though, is that they're also a liaison with OSPI and probably the contact person when OSPI comes calling to talk about what the district has in place.
And did I understand you to either state that either this person or the state is going to require all teachers or faculty to be trained on this?
No, the only legal requirement for training is this point person. The issue that the district will have to determine on its own, and the district has discretion, of course, as it tends to with certain types of trainings, is the district will have to determine to what extent it trains its staff or families or anyone else that it chooses to train or educate on this is up to the discretion of the district. It's legally required on an annual basis, like the point person needs to.
As someone who works in a school, high school on a daily basis, supervision is key, huge in our world. And just to comment, that's something that I'm going to be looking for in that policy is set guidelines for supervision of those areas. So that would be key for me.
Understood.
One more question, I'm sorry. And I didn't catch all of this earlier, so excuse me if you talked about this and I just didn't pick it up. So you made some reference to a complaint procedure. Did I hear that right? Either we have to have in place or as part of this?
Yes, you'll have, like you do with any other types of claims for discrimination, you'll have an internal complaint procedure that students or families can follow. So that is something that, again, the school district has various internal complaint procedures, and it will have one developed. And that's one remedy that students and parents can choose to follow. They can also file complaints with OSPI, or of course they could go down the lawsuit route as well, go to the EEOC or file a lawsuit. But you need to have an internal complaint process.
And that complaint process is, there's no specific guidelines how the state would like to see that done. It's really up to the school district to decide what that procedure is going to be like, or each school district.
Yeah, typically, and again, we'll analyze, Dr. Finch and I will analyze what the model procedure has and determine if that works for the district. The state doesn't dictate exactly what that process needs to look like. The school district retains discretion to have a complaint process and review process that works for it. I think the important thing from my reading of the statute and from OSPI is that one is developed. Some that students or families need to have an internal opportunity to try to resolve issues and complaints, which as a school district, you would always prefer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't expect an answer on this now. Forward thinking. If we have let's say three facilities, we have a male restroom locker room, a female restroom locker room, and a general neutral restroom locker room. If we deny access to a transgender student to one of those facilities, is that legal?
You're going to have a problem if you deny access. And you're also likewise going to have a problem if you force a transgender student to use the neutral restroom. The neutral restroom is intended for any student, regardless of gender, to use if they don't feel comfortable using one of the main restrooms. But I think you'd have, if denying access, you're gonna have, there's risk.
So I can get my head around this. Can you explain to me how, following the policy and all that with OSPI, the legislature, passing the law and OSPI passing to the school districts to develop the policies and procedures and all that. There's not another unfunded mandate that's been pushed down onto the districts.
It is.
Thank you.
Hence the comment setting us up to fail. I want to talk a little bit about process. It is our usual course when we and Dr. Finch outlined this, is that we have policy reading, first reading, the school board has an opportunity to weigh in, vote, pass, make some adjustments. Even though we pass the first reading, those adjustments come back and then we pass on a second reading. Mr. Mokel's point is well taken in that it would be nice to get to a final product on this sooner rather than later. However, given the interest in this, I might suggest a slightly different course than what we normally take. And this is what I'm thinking, and this is what I've been chewing on as I've been listening to Mr. MacKay's remarks tonight. And that is that I'm really excited to see what you come up with. I think that I'd like to have what is being proposed get out there to the community as soon as is reasonably possible ahead of the next school board meeting, so that interested people have the opportunity to weigh in on this. And that will be helpful to me on this issue as a school board member. As we process this, I probably would not suggest that the second reading occur at the ensuing school board meeting, that we give an opportunity to another opportunity for people to come forward. We can take all of that in. I know it comes at a cost to the district, but I really think that Mr. MacKay needs to be, even if he's not here in person, although if his schedule permits, I think it's very valuable to have him here in person. I mean, certainly he can participate by Zoom because he lives in Spokane, but I just feel like that we want to try to take in all of the comment that we can, and have everybody have the opportunity to weigh in. I'm gonna caution folks, however, that based upon what I'm hearing tonight, and as I read this statute, we don't get to just do whatever we want to do, and there's going to have to be some sort of an intersection here that eventually, I wouldn't even say works, that we're going to have to that we're going to have to come to on this. And I do think it would be instructive for you to kind of, not kind of, but to hear that for yourself and I advise us appropriately on, okay, here's what we're hearing. Can we do, is this policy adjustment of this procedure and how we want to incorporate it in the West Valley School District work? And I that's just my, as far as the process is concerned, I don't know if any of that makes any sense. And I'm sorry for my kind of rambling here, and I don't mean to. It's just a very difficult issue.
And for my part, obviously I'll defer to the board. You want to handle the process. For my part, I'm always happy to come down here and see you guys. And I always prefer to be here in person versus Zoom. I think it's a lot more personal. I frankly like to hear the comment, and I understand it as it's really my responsibility. You know, as we always talk about Mr. Thorner and the laws, like there's always a floor that is dictated by the law, and always have to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're not going below that floor. And so it's working on developing something that's going to work and takes into account the comments, but also takes into account and is mindful of the law minimally requires.
Well, what I heard in Mr. Thorner's elocution was he just transformed us into OSPI and recommended you become the school.
No, I'm just saying that.
You threw him under the bus.
No, not at all. No.
To the extent that
I just think that I think that what I'm trying to say is, if I were Mr. MacKay and he's engaged by the school district, if I were engaged by the school district to undertake this job of helping us comply with the law, when I'm the lawyer and I'm putting a deal together, I want to hear from the clients themselves what's important to them. And as the lawyer, I have to say, well, that's nice, but we can't do that, and here's why. And for us to play telephone, even through Dr. Finch, it's not going to help us get this done in an effective way. That's what I'm saying. Not trying under the bus. I'm trying to put myself in his shoes and say, okay, well, how am I going to help my client the best? And I think him being here is a material part of that process. And being involved and engaged in the conversation is a material part of that process.
And the timeline that you had suggested would be April 26th could be first reading, and then we would wait and come back May 24th for second reading. That would give enough time for our community to process this and to give comments to the board. But also, I do think it is a good idea to have Ms. MacKay here in person.
I will not be at the April 26th. I will
Okay.
be out of the country.
Okay.
And if it was a May 24th reading, I will not be at that meeting.
Okay.
And I would think it's important that the full board is at the meeting that we're
Right.
hearing that.
Did you say again, what is the deadline of policy in place? Is there a specific date that we must have this done by?
Yes. January 1st, 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So we're already late.
Yeah.
And yes, we want to get this in place, but now I agree with Mr. Mokel that this is I mean, they're all important issues, but we need to have, I agree that we should have the entire board. I mean, absent any intervening circumstances, the entire board should be present during these discussions. I think
If we
that,
moved it back next, if we could go May 10th for first reading and June 14th for second reading. Would that work?
I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Can you have, Mr. Thorner had suggested that we put it out to the public to be able to look at it prior to that. Is there anticipated date that we can get that out so even we can look at it before that
Yeah,
May
so we-
10th meeting?
I know Jason and I could work on this and have it by next week. We could have a first draft.
June 14th.
Any more comments? Very difficult issue to tackle, probably one of the more difficult ones in some time. So this is going to be a real challenge and a real delicate balance to try and meet the conditions of the law and at the same time reflect the of our community fairly.
And to do what is in the best interest of students.
Exactly.
And that's what makes this difficult because it's very difficult.
Okay, anybody else up here? Questions, comments? Before we kind of open it up to the public portion of this discussion, and maybe let Mr. McKay get a start back home. Anyone?
He might want to be here during the comments that we'll receive.
That's a good point.
Now.
So
I'll stick around for the comments and I just say, I understand that this is a difficult challenge for all of you and I look forward to being there and to helping you through it. So, and I will stick around for comment.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
thank you.
I also think it's important that the community know that this is not a decision that we are going to take lightly. This is tugging at us. We are having internal tug of war ourselves. And however we decide is not going to come easy. So we don't get to have the back and forth conversation with the community during the public comment. And that's difficult for us as well. But know that we hear what you say and we digest that, but we hear what everybody says.
Thank you. Any more comments from the board before we open it up?
I think that was very well stated by Mr.
Yeah.
Mokel.
I agree.
I appreciate that. Because he's right.
Absolutely. Okay, then we will go ahead and open this up at this point for a public comment on discussion items. So if you would, it might be easier. Did we get a sign-in page or just step up to the microphone?
Thank you all, and thanks to Mr. McKay for coming up. I know that his firm represents a number of school districts, and so I look forward to their ability to bring a full perspective of school districts who are together working through this challenge. And in that light, I obviously would encourage Dr. Finch to reach out to some of our other superintendents that are local and ask the question, how is Yakima Valley and how is Central Washington addressing these questions? I would put forth that as the policy and procedures are drafted, that it recognized that while there is some requirements to address transgender students, there's also the opportunity to address all students. And I know that this is a difficult pathway to try to chart, but it isn't just about one type of student that has an identification that is different. It's about recognizing the holistic student body and the holistic community that our board represents. And so as the text is drafted, I would ask that it be an affirmative representation of all students, not just a unique classification of students. I thank Mr. Thorner and Mr. Mokel and the rest for recognizing that the timeline as initially contemplated was so rapid as to be disingenuous to our community. So I thank you very much for doing that. I'm very concerned about the terminology that was used as promote. I took a quick look through the RCW. I did not see the word promote. I do not think the school board should be in the role of promoting anything other than being respectful to other students. So this isn't about promoting gender specific, gender abnormal rules. It is simply about providing a student community that can be respectful together. As Mr. Mokel pointed out, I'm also very concerned with downstream liability to a school district based off the supervision responsibilities. A staff member is now directed to go and supervise a locker room in which student is currently identifying as the opposite gender. What is is a male PE teacher's exposure to risk liability to the school district at general when a student who is truly female but identifying as male is in a changing locker room? So I think that those conditions are fraught with concern. I think they introduce all kinds of, again, downstream liabilities that isn't about one specific student and one specific issue, but unfairly wraps in staff who are asked or in cases directed to supervise this gender neutral kind of environment. So I'm very concerned about the downstream impacts and downstream risks that the school district takes from a state law that doesn't honestly and fairly recognize Washington State as a holistic community, but is very much specifically targeted by some, special interest groups. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Jamin Rivera. I've got kids in West Valley School District, ranging from high school down to elementary school, 3 of which are daughters. And while I can appreciate the conversation around the law and RCWs, there's a differentiation between the application of the law and the interpretation. I mean, that's why there's a legal profession, which these two gentlemen practice in, is how you interpret said laws. And RCW, although I haven't read these specifically, I have significant experience working with RCWs. And one thing they don't typically do is delineate how you address. I mean, it says what has to be done, but not how. And that's what the policy and the process and procedures come up with. And so from my perspective, I'm concerned so much with the actual policy, I guess, or, being compliant with law. We have to be compliant with the law, but how the practical application of that is what I'm concerned with. And so, there's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law and a whole lot of stuff in between. And so, just prior to coming here, I asked my 3 daughters, how do you feel about going to the bathroom with a biological male? I actually had never asked that before. And it was pretty eye-opening, the responses that I got back. And all 3 of them said, I don't feel comfortable. One of them said, I just won't go to the bathroom. I'll go in and I just turn around and I don't go to the bathroom. And so sometimes that's all day. Sometimes she'll try to go to another bathroom, but if that's not it, she literally doesn't go to the bathroom all day. And so, examples of, and whether this is perception or reality, and I pressed her on, it's a teenage girl, right? I'm like, are you making this more dramatic than it really is? And so, some examples she gave me where she went in, there was a biological male in there. He said, just go to the bathroom, I'm going to stand right here. She turned around and left. There was one where she said, there's boyfriend, girlfriends in the stalls. There's, all these things are going on in the bathrooms and the teachers can't do anything. Now, like I said, whether that is reality or perception, I guess perception is reality. And she said that her and her friends talk about at lunch how scary the bathrooms are. And so when you have teenage girls talking about how scary the bathrooms are and that they need to go into, that's a problem. The school district has a responsibility to look out for all of the students. And if she's not able to go to the bathroom or her friends feel like it's a scary place. That's not happening. And so, you know, where I think once again, it goes back to the practical application of address this. And if that's individual stalls that anybody can go into, that's fine. You know, if it's I mean, I'm fine the other way. Like, I know this is probably going too far because you can't discriminate at all. But if the discrimination is that she needs to go use a different bathroom by herself, that's fine. She needs to have an option, or they, because it's the three of them, where that, whatever they feel like that they need to do, they can do comfortably. And that, I can tell you, is not happening today. And so my concern is with, you know, getting this in, the practical application of that, because I mean, that's problematic.
Is there anyone else out there that would like to speak? How about via Zoom? Is there anybody? One comment. Go ahead and connect that person, please.
Hey, can you hear me? This is Keely Teskey.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm a teacher at West Valley, and I've been teaching at West Valley for 25 years. Went to Apple Valley, went to the junior high, and now I've been teaching here for a long time. Lots of changes in my time as a teacher. I just want to say that I respect everyone's opinion, and I know that it's hard for parents and kids to navigate, you know, a lot of things that have been going on. But I just need to speak about the bathroom situation just for a little bit. I have students that are transgender. I used to not. I didn't have to worry about students like that when I was first teaching. I don't know if they were just not feeling like they could say anything about it, but I didn't have any students that told me about the things that they had to deal with every day. But now I do. And I use the bathroom across my hall almost every other period. I'm 50 years old, and I've never had an issue in the bathroom. There's no students whatsoever when I've been in there that have had an issue in the bathroom. But I have had transgender students tell me that they're afraid to go to the bathroom, and it's not okay. So I just want you to know that there's all kinds of kids that might be feeling uncomfortable. And I think right now, with us navigating these waters, that we need to support the school board and our administration and our superintendent, and know that they have the best interest of kids at heart all the time. And they're going to do the best they can to keep all kids feeling safe. And I just know that I don't think there's a lot of people right now speaking for those transgender kids, and it's scary for them. So I'm available if you guys are going to make a committee or whatever it is that you're going to do. I just want to support all of the kids, and just want people to understand that I know that your kids as non-transgender kids might be feeling uncomfortable, but try to walk in someone else's shoes that is navigating a really strange world on their own. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you for your comment. Any more? There's another one. Okay, go ahead and connect that person, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This is Tara Cobia, and I just wanted to, I guess, kind of put it out there that myself and several other parents have talked to several of those of you sitting up there, and Mr. Finch about this ongoing struggle that has been brought up tonight and that's being discussed. And in effort to be mindful of students, all students who fall under all identities, we are looking into the best possible way to manage a solution, to find a solution that not only becomes legal and law abiding, but also creates a safe space for all students. And the research that is out there from the school districts across the country some closer to home in Oregon, as well as those that are in the Midwest that are dealing with the same issues that we are in West Valley, are finding solutions. Granted, there's no solution that is going to solve every problem. But the solution that we're proposing to the school board is the idea of remodeling our current gendered bathrooms to be all inclusive bathrooms. And that doesn't mean that anybody can go into what we typically see as a gendered bathroom and there's open stalls, but that it's remodeling our bathrooms so that every bathroom and every stall is its own single use bathroom stall. Just like when you go to the grocery store and you see a family restroom, right? And there's one door and there's one toilet. That's this proposal that I hope, as we present this to the community, that it will be widely accepted and seen as truly the best solution to help all of our students feel safe. It provides a place where it's open where it needs to be open, it's private where it needs to be private, and it allows for any student, regardless of their gender, biologically or identifying, that they have a safe space. At home, we share a bathroom. I have 6 kids. I have 5 in the district currently, and I have boys and girls, and we at home use the same restroom, one at a time, and use the bathroom, close the door, do what you need to do. And we're proposing that our current gendered bathrooms at the high school be remodeled to suit that. It's not cheap. It's something that costs a lot of money. And as we've looked into the cost, I know that when the community hears the expense of it, that there might be some sticker shock. So I hope that there's more people become aware of the circumstances at the high school, that there will be greater community support for the financial cost, like being willing to help fund it, so that we can create that space where every single student has a safe space to use the restroom every time. So, thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Is there any more comments? First within the room? Anyone? Any more? Do we have any more? One more? Okay, we have one more via Zoom. Go ahead and connect that person, please.
Hi, my name is Anna. I just wanted to echo what Tara was saying. I've seen those plans. It seems like that's a pretty seamless, already laid out for you bathroom setting for something that's so controversial. You've already had somebody that has done the homework and put the time and effort in, and to establish something that seems really inclusive. I also want to say that I do think that as staff members and teachers, I hear what you're saying about listening to those children every day. And in my household, we teach our children to be respectful to everyone. We don't have to talk about their differences to show how we would treat them respectfully. We just expect that from our children. And so that's a better way than having to go through all this, but I get it. I see what's happening. But I also want to say and push back on staff and teachers, if there is all this bullying and happening and you are listening to these stories, is there a reason why you're not getting to the bottom of it? I'm pretty sure that we've got a hotline or an email of teachers being able to throw out there what people are doing daily, what behaviors people have been doing daily the last 2 years regarding masks and things like that. Why isn't there something like this for our students? If the bullying is that serious and it's allotting for all this trouble, then I really do feel like there should be something like that for those children to have a safe place, because obviously teachers aren't a safe place for them because action's not happening from their discussions of them being bullied. They're not getting to the bottom. They're not getting to the root of it. And if we can have an email going out to HR, whatever, about bullying amongst, or, indiscretions happening amongst staff and teachers. And I think that there should be a student one. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more Any more public comments? One more additional, so please go ahead and connect that person.
Hi, this is Keely Teskey. I just want to respond to the person that was just speaking. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. The teachers are listening and the students are sharing things, but I don't think it's something that's going to be fixed with just calling in and putting it on a hotline. The students that talk to me, they actually, when they're upset or feeling bullied, they go down to the office and they ask to use the bathroom down there. So they have a system in place, and I think any kid at this point at the school knows that if they could actually do that, but it's, really not convenient to go spend, 10 minutes out of class to go down to use an office bathroom that is belonging to an administrator when they could, go across the hall and maybe do something like Mrs. Cobia said, using their own private stall, that maybe we can get something like that in place. So anyway, I just wanted you to know that we are listening. We don't have deaf ears for sure. Thank you.
I think my microphone is dead. Can everyone hear me if I just talk loud? Thank you. Okay, are there any more comments? I know there's none in the room. Are we done with the comments via Zoom? All right, I want to thank everyone for their comments today. Obviously, we'll have more opportunities for more comments, and we'll definitely need them. So please give this a great deal of thought. It's an important issue, and it's going to be a difficult decision, not just for us, but for the entire community, because in the end, we're all going to have to be satisfied with the results as best as we can. So thank you again for your comments tonight, and think about this some more, and we'll have future discussions. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is items arising. Anyone or Dr. Finch? No items arising. Superintendent's report.
That was in written form.
Okay. We can review the written.
That's fine.
Okay. And let's see, item 13, board reports, board development. Okay, and that pretty much covers everything, except we will go into executive session. It is 8:52. How much time do you think we need? About 30 minutes?
I would say, let's go 38 minutes. We'll go till 9:30.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Finch. So we will come back at approximately 9:30.
No action expected.
And yep, we will take no action.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Okay, calling the meeting back and adjourning simultaneously at 9:44 PM on April 12th. Thank you. Oh, guys, does